This week's special guest for the RORC Time Over Distance series is Charlie Enright. Born and bred in Rhode Island, USA, the young skipper has already notched up 2 round-the-world races which have been nothing short of high drama. Charlie's 3rd lap of the planet is scheduled for the ocean race as the skipper of a new IMOCA 60 11th hour racing. Charlie, the 2008 Walt Disney movie Morning Light, that must have been incredible to be part of. You know, a Transpac crew aged 18 to 23, 6 months training in a TP52. Was that a big influence on what you have become now?
Oh, undoubtedly. It was an amazing opportunity for, both Mark and myself, and really a turning point, I guess, in my sailing career, if you could even call it that, at that stage, because, at that point, sailing was something that I did, as a passion and as part of university and kind of teams all around the world, but it wasn't necessarily a profession. And it was that experience that kind of showed me, I guess, in a lot of ways that was possible. And that was because a lot of the people in the program, a lot of the coaches that we were exposed to, whether it be, Robbie Haynes, who ran the program, or, Stan Honey, who was there each and every day, Mike Sanderson, Jerry Kirby, Mike Howard. I mean, it was amazing. And that was coming off the back end of the ABN Ambro race that those guys had just competed in. So it was a remarkable opportunity, one that I didn't jump at immediately, I guess. I kind of applied for it just in the 11th hour, no pun intended, because I wasn't sure it was something that I was going to enjoy. And boy, am I glad I did. Send in the application, fortunate enough to be selected for the in-person trials in California, and then, fortunate enough to make the team and participate in the race and live in Hawaii and kind of kick this thing off. So, yeah, undoubtedly a huge break for us. But, it's kind of what you do, I guess, with those breaks, That could be the coolest thing you've ever done, or you could use it as a launch pad, We're always trying to make the most of our opportunities.
Yeah. And I think launchpad is the operative word. Offshore racing with Oak Cliff All-American team, the STP 65 Vanquish, Transat 2011, and then 3rd overall in the Rolex Fastnet race. That was a big opportunity for you and the team, and you took your chance, didn't you?
Yeah, kind of another, turning point for us, so to speak. As members, I guess founding members of the Oak Cliff All-American Offshore in 2011, it was something that started with the Storm Tristle Club and Ralph Stites in particular. And I believe there was a German entry in the transatlantic race and the Fastnet race, and Ralph and some other, I think George David and some other members of the Storm Tristle Club were like, hey, we should have an American equivalent to this. And Ralph, as he normally says, he says, I'm boat rich and cash poor. I can provide the platform. If you guys could figure out the rest, have at it. And, with the help of Oak Cliff and many other, commercial and private supporters, we were able to do the Block Island race, the Annapolis-Newport race, the Transatlantic, and then the Rolex Fastnet. And it was a really unbelievable opportunity because it helped us get one step closer to our goal of competing in the Volvo Ocean race. It helped Ralph undoubtedly sell the platform for probably a little bit more money than he otherwise would have been able to do because of the boat's upgrades and its track record over the course of that campaign. And then also, we kind of went above and beyond as part of that campaign. We did some things that weren't necessarily required of us, but I think spoke to our long-term goal. One of them was actually asking to stack, asking for permission to stack during that race with Puma. Took a little rating hit just as kind of practice looking forward. But the other thing that we did was we brought Amory Ross with us as an onboard reporter, and he was sending content off the boat on the way across during the transatlantic. And one of the people on that email distribution list was at the time Knut Frosted, who was the CEO of the Volvo Ocean Race. And later that fall, we established a relationship with the Ocean Race and their business development program because of the emails that we'd sent off the boat. We actually ended up going to the start of the 11-12 race in Alicante, and that's kind of where we got our feet wet with the whole thing. And then, part and parcel to that, Amory came out of that experience with an opportunity to be the OBR on Puma in that very race just months before it started. So, just one of those experiences that really worked out for everybody. And again, probably the second step, I guess, the second inflection point in our sailing careers.
Yeah, well, I kind of am changing jobs.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, starting something new here.
So you excited about it?
Yeah, very. This is the start of the whole deal, man.
We're at my brother's place.
John, what?
In Boston.
Johnny, go!
We're gonna have to be like the Red Sox.
Lovable.
So right before Thanksgiving, got a call from Knut saying that he had a potential sponsor match.
Well, we got a picture of Mark. He's doing his best blue steel.
Charlie, with our forces combined.
Yeah, again.
Captain of the planet. Seriously.
How's it feeling?
Good. Excited.
Like we're going to work.
Check.
Nothing is going to be better than your first race. Enjoy it. I'll just say enjoy it. I remember my first race and I enjoy the hell out of every day.
This is going to be home for the next 18 months. Alphamedica 4.
This program, everything's pretty tight and right. I'll tell you that. A lot of thought went into it.
Okay. We're going south to warmer climb.
This is home, covered in snow.
It's like NASA for sailors.
Did you enjoy the experience, Charlie?
Wholeheartedly. It was a ton of work to get to the start line. I always say it's not crystal clear what's more difficult, getting to the start line or getting to the finish line. And in a lot of ways, we were just so happy to be there. We didn't have any pressure on us. There was no expectation. If anything, the expectation was that we would fail and we had no clue what we were doing. And to some degree, that was true. But I mean, you can accumulate all the ocean miles in the world, but at the end of the day, you've either sailed around the planet or you haven't. And the fact of the matter was, we hadn't. So we had a lot to learn. But I feel like we went about it the right way. We capitalized on the opportunity. We turned a lot of heads. Overachieved in some aspects, but it definitely left us hungry for more. As satisfying as it was to, win a couple legs and whatnot, and around Cape Horn and first and stuff. It was like just enough to kind of wet the palate. So felt like we accomplished a lot, but certainly like we'd had unfinished business.
I mean, I'm sure it was an incredible experience. The race is 9 months. The build-up is much longer, so it's very difficult to analyse the whole race. But I'm just going to focus in on the Vestas grounding leg 2, and that was a gnarly start to the race.
think it could be 2 reefs off the start line is what I think. It's pretty windy. Could also be hats off, I think. Before I lose my only hat that I bought for the leg.
I think the only expectation for this first bit's just to expect the unexpected. We got all kinds of issues with 2 different lows and a high and a ridge and 4-knot Anguillus current, so it should be a bit of everything. And I think the key is just going to be to stay agile and roll with the punches. Plenty of wind here. So, I mean, just look behind me. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Get stop for 25. Big cream. Are you ready? I remember just sitting in the lead, Table Mountain with 2 reefs and a J3, in absolutely no air, knowing that at the first reach mark it was blowing 40 plus knots. I remember breaking a gaff batten at the second turning mark and having to sail into Abu Dhabi with the thing still cracked in half. And the leg settled out, I guess, a couple days later, and shortly thereafter, we got the call on the VHF, and there was never a question in our mind, what was the right thing to do. But it was a scary night on that reef, just acting as a communications relay between the Mauritius Coast Guard, between Vestas, between the race office, basically just between all the stakeholders trying to help run the operation from afar and support where we could. And just not knowing, I guess, all night whether everyone was going to make it out of the situation. I mean, fortunately, the sun came up and everybody was okay. But you always have to expect the unexpected, I should say. That's something that we've learned certainly in all our sailing to date. And to some extent, you can plan for it, but in other respects, it's kind of how you are as a person, as an operator, and how you approach the situation, because something like that obviously had never been done before and probably will be never done again. But just I think the way that you approach it, calm, cool, collected, methodical, and we had a lot of experience. I mean, that was Will Oxley's night, certainly. He was amazing that night, and give him certainly all the credit in the world, not only for how he prepares for legs, he's exceptionally studious, but then in the moment, how he helped me personally and the rest of the team and the Vestas guys just deal with the gravity of the situation.
The 2017 Volvo Ocean Race, which you skippered as Vesta 11th Hour Racing, you had to deal with some really tough times. I'm going to focus in on leg 7, which has got to be one of the most brutal legs in the history of the race.
This leg from Auckland to Ischai, or any leg that goes past Cape Horn, is definitely one of the reasons that people want to do this race. It's so iconic. So few people have done it. So it'd be amazing to get there and have that kind of ticked off. I had no idea actually how tough it was going to be. I think on day 4 I thought I had a bit of a realization how hard this ocean crossing was going to be. And since then the conditions haven't let off at all. It's been so windy. The waves have been like nothing I've ever seen before, and it's just been non-stop.
Conditions were relentless. You know, you have entire watches where it blew over 40 knots. I remember being on deck with Phil Harmer saying that, you know, we could cross off going at 30 knots, doing 30 knots in the snow, you know, from our life to-do list.
Definitely been one of the toughest Southern Ocean legs I've ever done. Just the relentlessness of it, the constant high winds, the cold, hail and snow seem to be a fairly common occurrence. So no, it's been real tough, and it's been steadily wearing us all down. But no, people have been doing a great job to battle on, and I think you know, reaching the Horn will be a good moment for us to celebrate and also reflect a bit on the leg so far.
Your team Vestas 11th Hour Racing made it round Cape Horn, but then dismasted, effectively ending your race, certainly for the podium.
Yeah, I mean, I think taking a step back for a second, you know, the 17-18 race certainly didn't go how we'd imagined, how we would have liked, how we would have drawn it up if we had the opportunity. You know, we were late, I guess, to the start line. We were funded late. We put the team together late. We kind of always felt a little bit on the back foot. That said, you know, we started the campaign quite strong, you know, with a win in the first leg and, you know, continued old podiums all the way to Melbourne. And, you know, I guess the finish into Melbourne was particularly difficult for me personally. It was kind of the first mishap, if you will, in that edition of the race, because my son was diagnosed with bacterial pneumonia, which was something that you know, I discovered 1,500 miles from the finish. I was kind of unable to do anything about it, and I was, you know, because of that, I had to sit out the next leg to Hong Kong, where obviously we experienced another campaign setback and a tragedy certainly in its own right. And it was amazing effort by the team and all involved to get the boat back on the water. To start the Southern Ocean leg that you're referencing from Auckland, and you know, to bounce back and to have such a strong position around Cape Horn, and then to have the rig fall down, essentially, you know, ending our hopes of finishing on the podium was difficult. And you know, the emotion that we were feeling was mixed at the time because of the loss of John Fisher. I mean, it was an absolutely heinous race. You know, when compared to the first lap of the planet, 4 miles in the Southern Ocean. You know, we had Tony Mutter sailing with us, a guy that's been around the world a ton, and to hear him say that he thought that was, you know, his windiest lap of the planet in terms of, like, you know, average true wind speed was pretty ridiculous to hear. And you know, again, even in the face of that adversity, you know, the dismasting and the time spent at the Falkland Islands and turning the thing into a pirate ship to get it back to Brazil, with basically 24 hours before the leg start in Itajaí, you know, to get the boat put back together, and then the podium into Newport. I mean, I think just spoke to the team's resilience. You know, it wasn't until I think May or June, it was like 7 months into the race that we had our first leg that wasn't a podium finish. But the problem was we didn't finish enough legs to be relevant. So, you know, sometimes you have bad luck, sometimes you make your own luck. those aren't excuses. It just wasn't the campaign we envisioned.
Yeah. Charlie, you've taken part in 5 RORC Caribbean 600s, including winning with Wizard, also with Cooks and 50 Privateer, and also with the Lucky. You've done the race 5 times. Why? You must like it. Why is it a cool race to do?
Caribbean 600 is, become one of the classic 600 milers. It's personally one of my favorites. The conditions are as reliable as you can imagine. Easterly trade wind sailing in the Caribbean during a great time of year. It's a north-south oriented race course in a traditional easterly wind, so you get nice, strong reaching conditions. Logistically, it's easy. You show up in one place, you sail 600 miles, and you end up back in the same place. The competition's great, the scenery's amazing, can't beat the temperatures. It's in a lot of ways, it's sailing at its best.
You've been training in the IMOCA 60, which was formerly Hugo Boss. You're calling it 11th Hour Racing Team's 11.1. This time, you're very early into a training program for what you've got in mind in the future. You've got a great squad, including 2 past winners of the Round the World racing, Simon Fisher and Rob Greenhalgh. The last 2 editions of the Round the World race you did in the one design Volvo 65. Got a lot of experience with that. Why did you opt for the IMOCA class?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot certainly that's different about this campaign, than our previous campaigns. You mentioned, being early to the table, which is a great feeling certainly, and couldn't be luckier with the support of 11th Hour Racing. It gives us a long runway on a lot of fronts, not only on the competition side, but on the sustainability side, and meeting our objectives there. The difference between the one design class and the development class is huge as well. I don't think we could have done what we've done to date without the 65 and having some of it kind of laid out for us. But that said, I think personally we're ready to take that next step and are very much intrigued by the development class and what the IMOCA 60 had to offer. So that's kind of where we've positioned ourselves and the path that we've chosen. Certainly push it a little bit harder, but I think, in whatever way is required, we're always giving 100% of ourselves, no matter what the case may be. So whether it's figuring out how to, massage this IMOCA 60 around the world, as we're seeing is required in the Vendée Globe as we speak, or whether it's full on pedal to the metal with something like a Volvo 65, I think, you have to find that balance and use 100% of your abilities to make it so. The IMOCA 60 is a totally different beast than anything I've personally ever sailed before for a host of reasons. Kind of to equate it to something in the RORC realm, it'd be like going from sailing a Beneteau 36.7 in the Solent or something like that to call it RAN 72 in the Rolex Fastnet race. It's just completely different beast, and that's the shorthanded nature of it. The customization of every little part. You name it. I went from being the guy holding on to a steering wheel in a crew of 10 during a random maneuver to a guy, who could be plugging in the tack of the change sail while a robot's driving in the back of the boat. So it's just a whole new world, and one that we've welcomed and taken on. Really, we've centered our campaign in Brittany, in the heart of the IMOCA culture, and tried to absorb absolutely as much as we can. And it's been so far so good. We used 11.1 to compete in the Azimuth race in the TJB back in 2019. An amazing experience that I was able to kind of go through with Pascal Badigari, who is certainly as talented and as experienced as they come. in that kind of French offshore world, learned a ton, and that's experience we're carrying forward here in the campaign.
Yeah. I mean, that is one hell of an experience. Pascal, Figaro winner, Volvo Ocean Race winner. The interesting thing is the dynamic with two of you on board for those two big races, the TJV and Le Défi. The dynamic is different with five. It must be totally different with five on board.
Right back on the horse. We're leaving Salvador and headed back to Lorient, this time with a little bit more help, crew of 6. We got a good group together here, and we want to spend the next 2 weeks, hashing out what life on board looks like for 6 people. Yeah, it's a really important time for the campaign, and we got to make sure we capitalize on it.
It's about midnight ETC. It feels kind of like we're in a space shuttle taking off.
Absolute madness. The boat is just consistently matching wind speed. We're not getting these highs and lows of boat speed that you're used to with the more conventional monohull. Pretty unreal, absolutely unreal.
It's a different world, really. I mean, obviously very different boats, very fast, and very dry compared to what we're used to. They're more of a sort of set it up and send it boat. You know, the boat speed's nearly always over 20 knots. As soon as you've got any sort of wind, even in 14 knots of wind, you're doing over 20.
Compared to the 65s, they had quite a lot of freeboard. There's a lot of space down below. They were designed to have 10 people on board, whereas this boat in its current configuration is designed for just one person, 5 sailors and an OBR. It's pretty tight.
I mean, they're special boats. They're really very different to what I'm used to in non-foiling monohulls. Very different, and trying to find a good mode for whether it be manoeuvres or just generally being on watch for one another. And even just living down below and operating and coexisting as a team is hard in itself.
It's been a completely new experience. You know, we're trying to figure out the ergonomics for the boat and the best ways to potentially sail the boat ourselves. Either letting the autopilot take control, which is, you know, pretty effective, or getting to try to sail the boat hard from inside the cockpit, where you kind of lose, you know, a lot of your senses.
Typically offshore you have very defined roles. You know, you have trimmers, drivers, you've got bowmen, pitmen. Whereas I think of this boat, you know, with only 5 sailors on board, you know, all those roles are combined, and there's such few people that everybody really needs to know the boat inside and out. That's what it's going to take. You're going to need every person on the bow, the navigator, the skipper, up there kind of plugging stuff in and getting hammered, and that's just the nature of these boats.
In general, we're just sailing 2 on deck. So, you know, you're very much limited trim, getting used to a different regime rather than reinventing the wheel.
Acclimating to the life on board, thinking about systems for sailing with 6. Our minds have been spinning. We've had plenty of time, and it's just a matter of capitalizing on it now. You know, although cramped at times, it's great having 6 of us. This configuration we're going to be sailing in moving forward, and a lot of good ideas. You know, to-dos, what not to-dos. You know, we learned a lot, so it'll be nice to get back and implement all this.
These boats are going to be pushed, certainly, as we look into the future, getting more people on them. And you know, exactly where the red line is remains to be seen.
Yeah. And I know you're going to be continuing to train in the spring with the current boat, but you're building a new IMOCA. The 11th Hour Racing IMOCA 11.2, are you calling it that?
Yeah, not the most original names, at least to date. But you know, 11.1 is the boat that we're sailing around on now, the ex-Hugo Boss, and you know, we're in the process of building what we refer to as the 11.2, and that should be splashing in June, just in time for the tail end of the 21 IMOCA schedule, which is great.
Yeah, and this is a Verdier design, built at CDK. I mean, that's a fantastic combination. But on top of that, you've got input from Francois Gabard. I mean, what can you tell us about the concept? What are you trying to achieve? I know you're not going to tell me any real secrets, but what's the overall concept for this brand new IMOCA for 5 people around the world?
Yeah, it's funny you use the word concept because, Mayor Concept, Francois Gabard's outfit, is our technical partner. And, they have a ton of experience in this IMOCA world. Francois having won the race himself in 2012, and they're currently managing the PVA campaign, which is looking pretty good in the Vendée today, if you rolled out of bed and checked the tracker. So we feel well positioned there, certainly. Guillaume Verdier, the savant that he is, designed their boat, so we can kind of piggyback off of that experience. There's a lot of overlap on the design side for sure, and I think CDK has built more Vendée Globe winners than anybody else. So again, there's a ton of experience there. A lot of safe choices, I guess you could say. But as we can see from what's happened in the Vendée Globe, reliability is a huge concern for us, definitely. When you live on the cutting edge, sometimes it cuts back, and we're trying to alleviate as much of that as possible. To finish first, you must first finish, and as these things get more radical, we can't lose sight of the reliability, which has been especially with the added force, I guess you could say, of more people on these things, not only adding displacement, which shouldn't be underestimated, but also pushing them harder and harder. So it's going to be interesting, as I alluded to before, to find that line.
11th Hour Racing, at their core, is sustainability. What are you trying to achieve in this respect? And how do you think you're going to do it in reality?
Yeah, I think sustainability, I guess, is a good word to sum up our 11th Hour Racing partnership. But more than that, it's to prove that that sustainability is not a compromise, and that if anything, it can be a competitive advantage for a sports team like ourselves. And we are the megaphone, if you will. We are the platform for communicating this around the world. But we are also leaders in the marine industry, and where we can move the needle there, we feel obliged to do so. And the time to act is certainly now.
Charlie, can you explain what Damien Foxall is doing as part of the team for 11th Hour Racing?
Damien Foxall is a force of nature, and also the leader of our sustainability team. Him and Amy Monroe and a couple others are working internally to make sure that sustainability is at the forefront of everything we do, whether it's on the boat build side, whether it's working with IMOCA on rules and regulations. We have to set the example and work internally, but also with our partners to make sure we're growing the industry as a whole, and we're making this a priority in everything we do, whether it's boat building workshops at ocean summits or trying to figure out how best to use flax for non-structural parts of the new construction of our boat. It takes time and it takes dedication, and it's not something that happens by accident. So having a whole team embedded in our operation is a great way to move the needle and to stay accountable.
2019 was a fantastic year for the Volvo 70 Wizard with you on board, winning the RORC Caribbean 600, the New York Yacht Club Transatlantic, and the Rolex Fastnet race. One hell of a hat trick. What were the key components to that amazing success?
Oh, I think with the Wizard team, it starts at the top. With the Askew brothers, I think the way that they lead, it just kind of permeates down through every aspect of the campaign. I mean, they're great sailors. They're great leaders. They're not micromanagers. They know what it takes. They have clear goals. They believe that there's a tool for every job, and we certainly had a good one with the Wizard. They've empowered me to, surround us with good people and create a schedule that worked for the boat. And, a lot of thought went into it. The optimization, the schedule, the crew, you name it. You got to set yourself up for success. You got to sail well. You got to be a little lucky, certainly. But, it was an amazing season for them, and I'm glad they were rewarded for it. And, definitely a season that we'll look back on fondly for a long time, I'm sure.
And then casting forward to 2021, I know you're going to be training and racing with the IMOCA 60 that you have now, but when do you expect the new IMOCA 60 to be launched?
Right now, the boat's scheduled for end of June, beginning of July. Roll out of the shed around there, and we have the Rolex Fastnet race on the radar as kind of the first event for the new boat. I think it's August 8th, if I'm not mistaken, Louis. Is that correct? Yeah, just. But 2020, I think everyone can admit, was a little shy on racing. And, certainly for good reason, putting health and safety kind of ahead of all else. But to the extent we can, we're happy to get racing again. And, the Rolex Fastnet seems like a good first event for any boat.